Rob Venn here. Today we're looking at the concept of technological convergence. We're doing this for Unit G325, and this is the exam module for A2, particularly looking at media in the online age. Now, what are we looking at particularly with this unit? Well, we've got to look at past, the present and the future of how technology and the internet have changed media. Specifically, we're going to be looking at music and television. We've got to look at how the online media developed. We've got to look at the impact of the internet on media production. We've got to look at how consumer behaviour and audience response have been transformed by online media. And we've got to look at the extent to which convergence has transformed the media. And that's what we're specifically looking at today. We're looking at that fourth bullet point there. So, particularly looking at technological convergence and how it's developed as a technology, how it's likely to develop in the future, and how it's affected music and TV distribution and exchange. We're not going to really be looking at it much in detail in this video. We're going to be saving that for our classroom discussions. Today I'm just going to be giving you a little bit of background into what technological convergence is. Now remember, when we're looking at the media, there's two common uses of the words convergence. The first one we learned about last year was about institutional convergence. Institutional convergence is where companies converge. Companies come together to form conglomerates so that they can create synergy. And whilst there is some link with technological convergence, because, you know, if you're a company like Sony, you know, you're an electronics manufacturer, it makes sense to own, you know, film production companies, for example, so you can make films that can be shown on your TVs. Technological convergence is essentially a separate concept. The term technological convergence was first used in 1978 by David Butler in an article in the Times newspaper. Now, the word convergence literally means to converge, to come together. So what we're looking at here is technologies coming together. If you want a more detailed definition, we've got Pieter J. Fourie and his definition of the term. He says it's the coming together of information and communication technologies to create new ways of producing, distributing and using knowledge, information and entertainment. So that's a good quote that sums it up. Another good quote, which is the same concept, is from Henry Jenkins, of course one of the key and most important theorists when it comes to media in the online age. He calls it the black box. So what we're talking about with a convergence device is one device that is capable of doing the job that hitherto had been done by individual separate devices. The black box is generally referred to as one device that would supply us with all our ICT and media requirements. And this is what we're heading towards in today's day and age with our smart devices like our tablets and our games consoles. So, what were things like in the past? Convergence is not a new idea, it's been around for a while. Back in the 70s and 80s it looked like this. We've got this Crown SHC 5500 from sometime around 1973, and as you can see it combines the functions of a vinyl turntable, a AM/FM radio and a cassette deck. In the early days this is how you would pirate things. The cassette would be used to record things off the vinyl or off the radio. When I was a kid you'd get what we call MIDI or micro systems, which would have twin tape decks so you could record from one tape deck to the next. This was illegal, it didn't stop anybody. Over here we've got something from the early 80s I'd say. This is an Emerson XLC 55, or 555 I should say, portable AM, FM, cassette player and TV boombox. What used to be called a ghetto blaster back in those days, rather racistly. Now they call them boomboxes. What we've got here again is AM/FM radio, cassette deck, a little black and white TV with this built-in speakers. This would be carried around in the streets, but this thing was huge. I mean, you know, it's the size of a briefcase, and imagine the amount of batteries this thing took. So it's not a new idea. Convergence has been around in one form or another. This is a nice little meme going on here. 20 years later and all of these things will fit in your pocket. The boombox with the radio and the cassette player. Well, that would be probably a high 8. Probably a beta camcorder. A couple of pairs of headphones. A Walkman. Another Walkman over here. A dictaphone for recording voice messages. Obviously a landline. I mean, who uses them nowadays? Again, we've got here a little micro MIDI system of some kind. This is a word processor. What they look like before computers. So like an advanced typewriter. That's a Watchman. That is a pocket TV with a little tiny TV screen in it. Calculator. These are some video cassettes. This one's particularly a Betamax video cassette. This is a Betamax video recorder. You've got another Walkman there. It's a CD. Some cassettes down here. So all of this technology nowadays fits in a smartphone. So more and more convergence devices are becoming what can be called a sovereign provider. Back in the 1920s and 1930s, the main source of entertainment in the home was the wireless, the radio. People would have a radio in their home, they would sit around it and enjoy an evening's entertainment. They had game shows, chat shows, news programs, comedy, and of course music. So much like TV today. Over here, of course, by the 1950s, television started to become the principal source of entertainment in the home. As you can see here, we've got the family all sat around watching television together. Today's day and age, of course, not quite the same. I mean, when do you ever see a bunch of people sat around watching TV together at the same time in today's day and age? In fact, I saw a news report earlier in the week that said that this is pretty much non-existent nowadays. Once upon a time, there would only be one TV in a person's home. I mean, don't forget that when I was a kid, you know, when you're looking back now into the 80s, we would have one television in the house. I did have a portable black and white television in my bedroom. That was very unusual. But, you know, one TV in the home was pretty much all you'd ever get. Of course, in those days, there were only 3 TV channels anyway. Nowadays, of course, look at them. You've got the TV, but, you know, she's on her tablet, he's on his phone, she's on her laptop. Probably all watching different things. Today's day and age, you know, you're probably sat in your bedroom with the TV on and the music on and your laptop and your phone all going at the same time. You may even be watching, your parents might be watching a program in the living room on the main TV and you're watching exactly the same thing on your tablet in your bedroom. By the 1990s, we started to get the Multimedia PC acting as a media hub. These were, to be fair, pretty rare. This is a 3.5-inch floppy disk. That's what a diskette disk drive. That's what you use for, you know, recording information on. You know the little save button you use to save work nowadays? That's meant to look like a 3.5-inch diskette. This has got a CD drive built into it. This would have been an early CD drive. It may very well have had CD video. There were early interactive CDs like CDI, which allowed to have interactive material. This may even, no. Well, the World Wide Web had only just been invented in 1991. Certainly nobody had that in their home. Nobody had. I didn't know anybody who had the internet in their home until at least 1997, maybe 1999 even. So you'd have to be very rich to be able to afford that in those days. So probably didn't have any web access. So what are things like in the present? You know, you've got your broadband allowing us to have all sorts of information piped into our home and indeed onto our devices. Television, telephony. Telephony is the process of using a telephone all being mixed up together. So we get a device like your smartphone, combining all of these kinds of devices. Emailers, digital cameras, music players, Sony Discman, handheld gaming like Game Boy, SMS pages. We've got your laptops, your desktops, alarm clocks, cameras, mini disc players, portable MP3 players, handheld gaming devices, video cameras, sat nav, whatever the hell these things are. I don't even know. That's an emailer. Blackberries, remember when they were cool? They're all gone. So all sorts of different technologies now are all being squeezed into one little black rectangle that fits in your pocket. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. I was sat earlier watching a video on my phone been taken by the Mars rover. It was a live stream from Mars onto the pocket computer I held in my hand. When you think about that, that is mind-blowing. Oh, by the way, a phablet is like a really large phone, like a, you know, the iPhone X Plus. Bigger than a phone, smaller than a tablet. Smart TVs. Obviously, you know, good luck finding a TV nowadays that isn't internet connected and full of apps. Nowadays, TVs are essentially computers. We don't tend to think of televisions as even being TVs nowadays. In the TV industry, they don't talk about TVs, they talk about screens. It doesn't matter what device you're using to consume your television programs. It could be a smart TV, it could be a smartphone, it could be a tablet, it could be a laptop, it could be a desktop computer, it could be a projector. Doesn't matter, it's a screen. It doesn't matter if you're watching it live as a broadcast over Freeview, if you're time shifting it and recording it onto your Sky Plus box. It doesn't matter if you're streaming it off Netflix or iPlayer. Content is delivered to screens nowadays. Of course, smart TVs are great. They're full of all these kind of apps, you know, your iPlayers and, you know, Amazon nowadays, Vimeo, whatever. Not an awful lot of use for things like Twitter, though. Not an awful lot of use for searching the internet or going on Facebook, because typing on these things is a pain. Reading text on these things is a pain. Why would you bother if you've got a tablet or a phone? So a lot of the smart, what they call lean forward technologies on these smart TVs are largely useless. But as long as you've got an iPlayer and you've got Netflix and you've got Amazon Prime, what more do you need? YouTube. You've also got devices like the Google Chromecast, like the Amazon Fire Stick, like your Kodi sticks that will plug into a television and turn a dumb TV smart, allowing you to cast content from a desktop browser like Chrome or from your smartphone or tablet straight onto your large TV. So a good cheap way, I mean these things are like about 30 quid, or you can buy, you know, plug-in boxes like Apple TV or like you know, the Amazon Firebox. A more common technology for this, though, is the games console. Increasingly, people are buying games consoles not to play games on, but as a media hub. They're using them to stream, you know, Netflix, they're using them to stream Amazon Prime, they're using them to go on to Mubi, or in America something like Hulu. They play CDs, they play Blu-rays, they play DVDs. You know, you can stream Spotify off them. It's an all-in-one entertainment hub. Not to mention you play games on them. Now there are cheaper alternatives. It's, you know, less likely you're going to buy one of these unless you're going to use it for gaming. But, you know, that was a trend a couple of years ago. Now, it's all very well having these smart boxes that look all exciting and shiny, but there is an argument against technological convergence. It's called the Black Box Fallacy. Henry Jenkins in 2006 says that one device cannot provide us with all of our entertainment and information needs. It can, in theory, not perhaps one box, but if we think about the internet as an entertainment pipeline, piping entertainment into your house from the cloud, it is a one-stop source of entertainment. But what happens if your internet goes down? What happens if your black box stops working? At least in the old days, when your TV and your stereo and your games console were all separate things, you know, one broke down, you could use it. One of the other ones, sorry, but if they're all come through one device, you've had it. So we've got this idea of the jack of all trades, master of none. A all-in-one device requires compromise. It may be capable of doing all sorts of things, but it can't do any of those things really well. So, for example, your PlayStation will play DVDs and Blu-rays quite happily and relatively cheaply, but it won't do it anywhere near as good as a dedicated high-end Blu-ray player like a Marantz UD700, which is a bit out of date nowadays, but when I bought one of them they were like £1,000. But it plays Blu-rays a damn sight better than my PlayStation 3 did. On the other hand, you've got devices like these. On one hand, you've got the Google Chromecast, which costs £30. That allows you to stream music from your phone or tablet or computer onto a hi-fi. Plug it into the back of a hi-fi using a jack-to-jack cable into the headphone socket, and you can play music through your hi-fi. Cheapest chips, does the job, sounds reasonably decent. But it won't stream music anywhere near as well as this Lin Climax DS3, which costs £15,800. Now, for most people, a Google Chromecast is going to do the job okay. I've got one, I like it, nice bit of kit. But it's not going to have anywhere near the sound quality of that Lin streaming box. And if you're an audiophile, you may be willing to spend that kind of money to get that kind of quality. So that's the present. What's going to happen in the future? Well, maybe we're looking at the death of the physical format. For a while, it looked like music downloading, MP3s, piracy, iTunes was going to kill off the physical format. Nowadays, of course, it's not looking that way. Whilst we're getting a trend towards streaming video off the internet, we're like, who buys DVDs anymore if you can have Netflix? Who downloads music of iTunes when you've got Spotify? Well, the death of physical formats is kind of premature as a concept. Vinyl, for example, making a big comeback. Right? Vinyl very popular, especially with the hipster types, or your audiophiles who may argue that the sound quality is better. Technically speaking, CD is by far the best sound quality, depending on how well it's been mastered. But there's something about vinyl which just sounds organic and warm and rich, or a CD can sound clinical. You can get digital formats like WAV and FLAC, which will give you higher audio resolution even than CDs, but the human ear can't really tell the difference. But, matter of taste, isn't it? So, we've even got formats like cassette making a comeback. A lot of indie bands are releasing music on cassette because it appeals to the hipster types and it's cheaper than producing vinyl. Physical formats are still hanging on. Blu-rays and DVDs are still great because, just because the film's on Netflix now doesn't mean to say it's going to be there in 6 months' time. Whereas you buy a Blu-ray and it's yours forever. So, I think we are going towards a trend where physical formats will disappear eventually. How long that will take, however, is another matter altogether, since the demise of physical formats has been predicted for quite a while yet, and it hasn't happened yet. So, essentially, we are still, whichever way you look at it, living in a world where technology is converging. The smartphone, the tablet, and the smart TV have revolutionised the way that we watch video, the way in which we listen to music. This, of course, was all intertwined and interlinked with the idea of high-speed broadband and internet connections, either through fibre broadband or through 4G on your phone. All of this stuff makes this kind of technology possible. So that's a basic rundown of the concept of convergence. We'll look at some specific case studies in class. try to have a poke around and find some facts and figures about, you know, the popularity of various streaming services and the, you know, the popularity of physical formats. Do you know of any bands that are releasing music on cassette? You know, do you yourself like to collect vinyl? You know, do you prefer DVDs to streaming stuff off Netflix? If so, why? Alright, so that's what we're going to talk about in class. Any questions? You know where I am. Talk to you next time.